how humans need the brain to go ahead and tell you to do actions, right? Agents also need a brain to go ahead and do some actions.
If agents are humans, then what is OpenLedger? What value does OpenLedger provide?
Let's say tomorrow you go ahead and launch an agent and uses a particular model. Something goes wrong. The agent goes rogue and it does something bad.
Welcome back to the Rollup, your home for technical talks and open conversations that shape the modular future. Nothing on today's show is to be construed as financial advice. You can see our full disclosures list at therollup.co/ventures. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners.
Ladies, gentlemen, Anons, and Degens, it is stablecoin season, brought to you by your favorite, the best in stablecoins, Frax. USD dollar stablecoin backed by the best in the business, the Biddle Fund by BlackRock and Superstate. This is stablecoin season. It is the yield-bearing stablecoin by Frax, coming soon to a chain near you.
All right, Ram, we're in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
My last podcast of the day. It's been a marathon. It's been a fun week.
Awesome.
A lot going on here.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. Hong Kong is always busy. Yeah. How's life for you here? You've been traveling, right?
Yeah, it's my second week here, my second time here.
Oh wow.
So it's just very interesting to me, the difference between you go to like East Denver and conferences in the West, and the culture, the types of projects, the conversations are just different than they are here.
Yeah, I think this is more like go to market, like, what's your product going to be, how the end consumer is going to use your product.
Yes.
How would retail kind of relate to your product, right?
Yes. It's less like technical research, like
West is more research,
B2B,
much more long-term.
Partnerships. Yeah. 100%. I totally agree. Well, the AI and crypto space has one cycle behind it. I think it's kind of had its time in the sun.
Yeah.
But I think what's next is where we're gonna see some of the more legitimate and kind of venture-backed and longer-term projects emerge. One of which being OpenLedger that you guys are building. So I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about the kind of state of AI and crypto. What happened in the last couple of months. So just to kind of lay the groundwork. We had the initial launch of Truth Terminal on Twitter, which kind of came out as like this whole new meta for AI or agentic crypto interactions, Fartcoin and Eliza, A16Z, and all these kind of different projects. And we had that cycle. So maybe you could just kind of speed run us to where we are today.
Yeah.
Following the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Kind of what happened from your perspective. And what was the core infrastructure and core components that were built and that will be left standing following kind of the downfall of price action, which is not always related to fundamental.
Yeah. So if you kind of like take a look at it, right, this happened in the traditional space as well. When OpenAI was launching ChatGPT, there was a huge rage. We've never seen something like this. You could chat to an AI and then get answers, and people like going crazy. They were asking like random questions. And then you saw all of these ChatGPT wrappers that came out of that. Like bunch of random stuff where you can generate an image for a particular thought, like in a topic and stuff like that. You could probably ask questions about legal. You can ask questions about your personal stuff, and then AI would answer. All these were like simple wrappers on ChatGPT, right? I very similarly see this, AI agents to be like that, to be like ChatGPT wrappers, because it is what it is, right? It's an OpenAI model in the backend with some system prompts and a theme around a particular meme, and it talks about that. Most of them were speculative, but some of them like really good, have some kind of use cases. And unfortunately or fortunately in crypto, people like to play around with tokens, right? Since all of these agents came with tokens, they kind of like took retail to like in a frenzy, kind of, because the tech was cool. It was interesting. You could talk to it. You would see a Twitter agent like interacting with you on your comments. So people are going crazy about it, and they want to like speculate this token because they thought, okay, this is going to become big because it has like a lot of eyeballs. There's a lot of attention to this, and that kind of like made people launch random agent tokens. And there is too much speculation that is going on. We've all seen this. We had, I think, from right about like August to like December, we saw random kind of AI agents that came over.
15,000 launch on virtuals. 15,000.
Wow.
Which is tokens as well.
But how many actually are like really standing out, right? Like very few of them. Virtuals as a platform is great, right? Eliza as a framework is like really great. But like people could not, like I would say, like take it to the better front. Like we've seen this happen in the traditional space, but people evolved. They built much better apps. Like Perplexity, I would say, is a great app, which is still uses an OpenAI in the backend and probably uses other models as well. They kind of evolved from there, but it's much better version of a ChatGPT wrapper, right? That should have happened with agents. But again, in crypto, a lot of stuff is initially speculative. We've seen this happen with ICOs. We've seen this happen with DeFi. I think that's what happened with AI agents. That's
Weird, yeah.
and a lot of fluff kind of like really went down now after Trump token came in and all the things that happened. But again, this will come back. I think the meta will come back again. AI is definitely here to stay because there's a lot of stuff happening in the traditional space that's going to kind of like creep in back to Web3. I'm sure that there will be agents that will be coming back, which has much better utility, much more purpose than the current agents that is there. And I think the infra wave will also come back for AI, right? Because better infra obviously means better agents, better products, and that's what I expect. So that's what I see will evolve from here.
So maybe you could outline what the sector really is. So we have agents, we have frameworks, and there's also some sort of middle ground here where it's like. So I know we have frameworks to build, which are kind of like akin to an L1, or at least that's how like people have been kind of making a mental model around it. And then we have agents, which are like almost like applications. Like what is going on in this sector here? Or we have like what are the key categories of this like AI sector currently in crypto?
Yeah, so like if you take a look at AI, like there are three major components in terms of infrastructure. It's compute, there is algorithm, which is basically the model, and then there is data, right? So this is the core infrastructure. What's built on top of that is the app layer, which is the agents, right? And the frameworks are kind of like in the middle, which support these agents to be launched, right? You need a no-code platform people to go ahead and launch these agents, right? I would say frameworks are those no-code platform that enables this to happen. What like kind of people were experimenting with the frameworks is more on how can we use the existing models that are there, the existing solutions that have been already provided, like OpenAI, Llama, and all that, and like how can we tweak that to build our own use case, right? There's more of experiments, right? Like AI XPT is a good experiment to showcase, to talk about what's happening in the industry, to talk about what's happening in, like on-chain and off-chain sentience and all that. We don't know what happens behind the terminal. I don't know if anyone actually accesses the terminal, but like I think if you get to access the terminal and the terminal actually lets you do something, that's the real utility. That is where I would like people to go and explore. So that's what we want to see happening, right? We want to see agents which can let you do something. Like agents are basically a bloated version of apps, right? When you interact with an app, you get to an endpoint, you get something out of that. I'm able to order e-commerce. I'm able to, go ahead and book my ticket and do all that. Agents could do that for you. Agents are just smarter versions of apps, right? But the infrastructure currently in Web3 at least doesn't support that, right? You need to have better models. You need to have better data flows for these agents to be smarter. And there are very few firms that are working on that. Like we are one of them, where we want to support by providing models which are specialized for a particular need. And it's like, think of agents to be like humans.
Okay.
Like how humans need the brain to go ahead and tell you to do actions, right? Agents also need a brain to go ahead and do some actions. And usually the current agents uses a brain which is very generic, which is an OpenAI.
Yeah.
It's very generic. This tells you it has information
Like a
about
factory
the
brain, It's
Exactly.
like they just stamp, boom, stamp, boom, stamp, boom, stamp, boom, right? Yeah.
It's not customized to your need.
No.
You can't use like your butter knife to have your steak, right?
Right. Exactly.
You need to have something customized for a particular need.
Right.
If you want to build an agent for trading, then you probably use a model which is better off for trading, right? Which is specialized for that. And that's what we want to enable to happen. Like we want to make people build models for their own need. Like let's say I want to build a model around, to find the best staking options that is there, right? To find the better yields for myself. And I want to build an agent around that.
Yeah.
People can go ahead and use OpenLedger, collect the data sets around that, build a model for that particular need, and then launch that so that any agent can use this model and make better decisions with that. So that's the ultimate goal, right? How can we build like verticalized AI models on top of us? An AI for trading, an AI for healthcare, an AI for, let's say, being a co-pilot for Solidity and all that. How can people use our infrastructure to build that? Is what we are like really looking for. I think that is what is gonna push the next narrative of AI and AI agents and all that is gonna happen.
This is a good segue into kind of what's coming next then, right? So we kind of established what happened in the last couple of months. I think we get in the next wave of iterations likely coming. It'll be more sophisticated than this first wave as the market is more mature and kind of aware of what has happened. And I think a trend that you and I are both kind of pointing towards here is the specialization of agents. So rather going from a general framework of an agent who can do everything to more like you'll have a specific categories or sectors or tasks which agents will be done, and then personalized ones. Personalized meaning I have mine, which I train, and I do this already, right? Like I've got a Claude account, a Claude Teams account for the Rollup. I've got my project. Robbie's got his. Everybody on our team has our own projects, and then we have shared projects that we train with all of our own data and inputs. And so I've got one Claude project that I speak to daily. So it's like it's used to me now. It's personalized to me, right? In that capacity.
So like what?
So that's where we're going.
What we've basically done is like there are multiple ways to make a model much more usable for a particular need. So you could start with like RLHF, basically where you already have a model, you have an agent for that model, you give constant feedback to this model by telling, okay, this is what I am, this is what I do. You get all of this information. It kind of starts storing this personalized version of Andy. It gets to know you, and whatever questions you ask, it's going to have this in this memory and it's going to answer you, right? That's the memory of an agent. And then it goes one step more than that. When you actually build an agent for yourself, you could do like a system prompt, right? And then there is much more. You could use RAG, which is sort of like a temporary database that you can use, which the agent can refer, the model can refer every time it needs to give an answer. And the much more deeper version of that is actually where you fine-tune and build a model for yourself where you specialize, right? But specializing and building your own models are for larger like verticals. It would not be for, let's say, a model for Rollup.
No.
It would be a sort of like a model for the entire, let's say, Web3 marketing or Web3 like
so
alpha kind of
stuff. It requires more data, or it's more expensive to create?
It takes a lot of time. Because you need to collect a lot of data, right? The fine-tuning process on let's say a platform like us it takes probably a few hours because it's a no-code platform. You can go ahead and build a model in like a few hours. You can just fine-tune them within any existing model that is there. But collecting the data is what matters, right? It's going to take a lot of time for you to collect the data. And then once you train a model, once you build a model, then you got to see whether the model answers the way you want. So there's a lot of iterations that goes in, right? So people do not go to like fine-tuning as a first step. They would probably start with sort of like system prompts. That's what most people do. And they go for RAG and then they go for fine tuning. Or there's like recently there has been like tool calling and all that, right? Where there's an API request that agent takes in and then figures out the answer and then comes back to you.
Right.
Like we kind of support all these three. You can provide like a RAG, or you could build like models on top of it, or you can use any of the models that is there in our platform and use tool calling to go ahead and get your answer.
Innovating finance, global, institutional, and on-chain. Deep liquidity to drive capital efficiency. Now maximize yields on institutional-grade liquid staking with METH. Unlock $1 trillion of capital via Bitcoin. All of this secured by Mantle's treasury of billions in stables and ETH capital pools. This entire ecosystem is coordinated by a vast network of seasoned VCs that are aiming to create the next generation of banking and financial technology. This is Mantle. Redstone is DeFi's modular oracle, supporting over 100 clients on over 50 chains and offering 1,000 assets. Redstone is the leader for Bitcoin staking and yield-bearing assets. They offer the most robust, customizable price feeds available in any model. Join the Redstone exhibition today.
Okay, so you guys are fully optimized for a future that's more specialized and more personalized, or just specialized.
I would say start with like specialized,
Okay,
and then probably evolve to more
but
personalized.
what's the difference? If it's specialized for me,
Yeah,
it's a synonym for personalized, right?
I would say personalized is more like individualistic, right?
Mm,
I would want to I would take a specialized and maybe personalize it much more for my need.
okay,
But specialized is much more broader,
okay.
right? You guys are specialized for Web3 podcasts,
Mm,
right? So how can we build a model which is focused about like Web3 marketing and on-chain model and stuff like that? Because if you go ahead and ask like ChatGPT or Claude or any of these agents that are there and like query like give me the best ways to market a project in Web3, right? It's going to give you like a very generic answer. It's probably going to look at hundreds of blogs that has been trained on and then probably search the internet to give you some random answers from blogs. It's not going to be like really specialized. It's not going to be very specialized. It's going to hallucinate like hell. So the idea behind this is to not make sure that that doesn't happen. To build much more purpose-driven solutions.
okay.
This has been the thing with tech. If you take a look at tech, right? Tech has been always generalized when it launches because it's an innovation and everyone wants to try to use that and they feel that it's not very efficient and they go much more vertical and then build like specialized versions of that. We've seen this with apps, we've seen this with web solutions and all that. It's going to happen with AI as well. It's already happening in the traditional space. We are bringing that to Web3. That's simple. Yeah.
So on a more philosophical level, when we're thinking about agentic interactions in the future, especially like from a perspective of commerce, right?
Yeah.
For example, we have a agent coming out on the Rollup.
Mhm.
It'll be able to speak on the podcast and ingest information in real time.
Mhm.
It probably won't be that good at that,
Mhm.
but it'll be able to also edit some videos, do some clips. It'll have its Twitter account.
Yeah.
It'll do these types of things. So when I'm thinking about how we scheduled this podcast, for example, there's a Calendly link.
Yeah.
There's a coordination that we're both going to be in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
That we're going to do business. That we're going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
So like when I'm thinking about this roll-up agent that we have, that also can interface with Telegram, like is there not a reality where this roll-up agent can effectively manage our schedule or can communicate with your agent or other agents? Like what I'm getting at here is like I would like to enter a world where not only can I interact with my agent directly from a prompting to an information perspective, but I would like to be able to delegate to then interact with another agent who then is having its tasks delegated from you.
Yeah.
So it's like you and I can communicate, but like it can almost happen. We can get things done without us, like, yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So think of agents to be like humans. Right?
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always like compare this to like what happened with Tesla. So when Tesla initially came about, it kind of behaved like a bot. So you go through a lane, it's gonna follow the lanes that is there, and then it's just gonna drive a straight road, right? And then they kind of brought in the sort of like an autonomous driving in the freeway because there was more understanding how the freeway works. It was easier. And then now it goes from the point A to point B without any human intervention. And once it reaches, it parks itself, right? So now it's behaving like a human, right? A human doesn't need to be sitting on that driver's seat, but we have to because of regulations. But it's driving itself, right? Think of agents to be like that. It's another form of human being. It's a digital form of human being. So I guess that's how you need to see it. You need to train your agent to behave like an
human,
right? Like a human,
Yeah.
where the agents of us could talk to each other and they help us out. Right? I think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be like years and years away.
No, I think it's like this year.
This year.
But I think it's a good mental model to think about agents as humans. So if agents are humans, then what is OpenLedger? What value does OpenLedger provide to these humans, to these agents?
I more on the intellectual layer, right? Like how can we make these agents much more smarter? How can we make these agents to do something much better than what they're doing right now? Because as I told you, that is very much needed. If I'm gonna use agents for my own needs, if I'm gonna make this much more purposeful than sort of like a gimmick, then I would need models, an intelligent layer that's gonna help me do that, right? So because like if I'm gonna have an assistant for me to, let's say, help me manage my finances,
Mm.
you should be probably trained on finances, right? You should be at least an MBA for me to actually make sure that I make the right decisions and help me out in that. So why would you use someone who's an undergrad or someone who's like a, like a, you know, 10th grader or something like that to actually do your math?
Yeah.
You would need someone who's just much more specialized. Very similar logic. Models which are much more specialized for a particular task are much precise and less hallucinating compared to the generic models that are there.
Understood.
Think of generic models to be like an operating system,
Yeah.
and then specialized models are like much more fine-tuned versions of maybe an apps or something like that on top of that, and so that they deliver much better outputs compared to the generic models that are there. That's what OpenLedger wants to build. We want to build a framework for this to happen. There is like a lot of moving parts to this, right? Someone has to contribute the data, and so we built a framework where people can contribute data sets. They could write a rule engine so that data set contribution is much more efficient. And then there is a no-code platform where the model gets trained. So we built that out.
Got it.
And then there is an attribution layer where if these models are built and hosted on a platform and an agent uses that, we know which data was causing this output to come in every model on every inference. And then we reward back the data contributors based on every inference, right? So that the revenue that we get from these agents for these models is distributed equally to these data contributors. Because if you take a look at in a foundation model, there is compute, there is data, there is models. There's a lot of factors that is coming in. But for a specialized model, which is just a layer above the foundation model, like I'm not going to build a foundation model on my own. That's not going to happen in OpenLedger, right?
No.
Users will go ahead and take any foundation model, train that to their need. They will fine tune that to their need. If they're doing that, the biggest factor over there is the data contributor, the data that's being contributed. So they have to be equally rewarded as the model builder. So the attribution layer enables you to do that. We attribute back to see which data causes output to come and then reward them. Another important aspect of that is the explainability, right? Let's say tomorrow you go ahead and launch an agent and uses a particular model. Something goes wrong. The agent goes rogue and it does something bad. You might want to go back and figure out which data actually caused it to happen, right? It might be a data which is poisoned. You want to go back and see that. That's where the attribution layer helps you do that. So that's an integral piece of what we do.
So then zooming out from AI as we kind of come to a close, any alpha on OpenLedger, key takeaways from Hong Kong for those who couldn't have been here, and what's coming next?
So a lot of stuff. So we are in our testnet right now, testing out the product, letting community access our product. As I told you, there are 3 layers. Right now, we've opened up the data layer where people have contributed data to us. We've close to more than 1 million users who've like onboarded and contributed data. We're opening up the model layer right now, so people can go ahead and access our platform and build like their own models, experiment. It's in the testnet, obviously, so we want people to like play around. The third will be the agent integration layers, where we integrated to a lot of frameworks, so you can go ahead and like launch agents using our platform. We don't want to be in the agent framework play. I think there are a lot of players over there.
Yeah,
it would be the infrastructure that supports and makes these agents smarter. So we integrated with various partners, so they could use that. So those are the updates that is coming out, and hopefully a mainnet soon. So that's what we're working on. So that's the update. And Hong Kong has been quite busy with the events and all that happened. And next is probably Denver.
All right, Ram. Thank you so much.
So man,
Great
nice
conversation.
talking to you always.